Now to the latest on the violence in Sudan. A 72-hour ceasefire to coincide with the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr has been broken.
This as the country's top general earlier today declared the military's commitment to a civilian-led government. Since the fighting broke out last week, more than 400 people have died, including one American. The U.S. is now repositioning troops in the region ahead of a possible evacuation of the American embassy.
CBS News national security correspondent David Martin joins us now. David, earlier this week, Egypt evacuated more than 170 soldiers from the country. Japan and South Korea have also announced plans to evacuate their citizens. What do we know about U.S. preparations?
Well, you mentioned the fact that the U.S. has prepositioned special operations forces in the African country of Djibouti, which is still several hundred miles away from Khartoum, but it's the closest U.S. base in that region. Defense Secretary Austin said just a short time ago that no decision has yet been made to go in and evacuate Americans using the U.S. military to bring out U.S. diplomats. The hope is that one of these ceasefires will actually take hold, because the fighting is going on in the city, and the airport, which is the logical location you would use to stage an evacuation, is at the center of the fighting. So without a ceasefire, it would be extremely dangerous for planes to fly in there and risk getting shot down. The other option is to send helicopters directly to the U.S. Embassy, but that too is extremely risky without a ceasefire. U.S. learned the hard way a long time ago, nearly 30 years ago, in the Battle of Mogadishu, what became known as Black Hawk Down, that when you're flying low over a city at war, bad things can happen. Now, the U.S. is also making it very clear that it is only planning to evacuate the several dozen American diplomats stationed in Khartoum. It is not planning to evacuate the several hundred American citizens who live and work in Khartoum. What the U.S. is trying to do right now is bring all of the diplomats into the embassy from their private residences or wherever they were trapped by the fighting out in the city. And if they can get to the embassy, that is relatively safe, because although Khartoum looks like a free fire zone, there's no indication that Americans are being deliberately targeted. But ultimately, this comes down to a presidential decision. Is he going to decide that the risk to Americans in Khartoum is so great that he needs to send in the U.S. military to get them? With a ceasefire, that is one thing. Without a ceasefire, everything becomes more difficult and more dangerous.
David, you mentioned Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and he was talking this morning. He did confirm that Ukraine will begin receiving and training on U.S.-made Abrams tanks. So what do we know about how that training will look like?
Well, what he said was that the tanks themselves will start arriving in Germany in about 2 weeks. The U.S. has promised to send 31 Abrams tanks, the Abrams being regarded as one of the best, if not the best, battle tank in the world. But once they get to Germany, there's still training that has to go on so the Ukrainians know how to use them. And that training process will take about 10 weeks. So, you know, add that up, and it's still like 3 months away from the time when those Abrams American battle tanks could get to the battlefield. Other countries in Europe are providing battle tanks to Ukraine. And this morning, actually, the Secretary of Defense put a number on that. He said other European countries have supplied 230 battle tanks to Ukraine. So add in another 31 from the United States, and you have upwards of 260, but that will still be 2 or 3 months away.
All right. David Martin breaking it all down for us. Thank you.